welcome to this new episode of Norwich Theatre Talks. I'm Stephen Crocker and I'm Chief Executive and Creative Director of Norwich Theatre, and it's lovely to welcome you back here to Podcast Corner at Norwich Playhouse. As I always say on these episodes, we record these live during the midst of a busy working day here at the Playhouse, so bear with us if you hear some background noises or kind of extraneous sounds. This episode is recorded during Mental Health Awareness Week and on a day where we are about to open our latest co-production with the amazing Carlos Acosta and Acosta Danza. So on this episode, I'm going to be talking to the man himself, Mr. Carlos Acosta, but also introducing another member of the Norwich Theatre team to you, our Deputy Stage Manager from our technical team, Emma Maxwell. My first guest will be very well known to all of our regular dance attenders and is now becoming no stranger to Norwich. Carlos, welcome back to Norwich.
Thank you for inviting me again. It's great to have this podcast, coffee, wow, amazing.
Absolutely. It's hot off a train, just here with us to see the company back in Norwich. And the company has been going for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, we're going to be 8 years now.
Yeah.
This year in September will be year number 8 for us.
And I just noticed yesterday actually that the National Dance Awards, Acosta Danza there again, which is fantastic. And Zalady, one of the company.
Yes.
That must make you feel so proud to have brought these phenomenal dancers into the UK dance scene and that they're being recognised alongside their peers who've gone through a completely different development process, have had different opportunities. That must feel amazing.
Oh, amazing, really amazing. I'm very proud of the team, both the Cuban team and the UK team. They work so hard, and the dancers and the staff and everyone works so hard, to get where we are now. And still, it's pretty much a company. It's in infancy, and as you know, Cuba is a third world country, so it poses a lot of challenges to just maintain a company from there and make an international mark. But it is testimony how hard everyone has worked and how hard they believe in this idea, because it all started with a simple idea. That idea has been embraced for so many people, and people like yourself as well, that give us a chance, a platform to show our work. And now, the critics are taking count on it and realize the work that we do, and this is the reward. So I'm very, very pleased.
But I think you're being quite modest. I remember you first talking about the company in kind of 2016, 2017, when they just done their first performances in Havana. They were coming over to the UK for the first time. And there was this vision about this kind of fusion of all those different dance styles, which is kind of becoming like the Acosta technique. And it must be, because people are trying to get their head around that. The dance world can be quite traditional, can't it? It can see things in boxes. And, in a way, you're trying to do something quite revolutionary, and it's working, and audiences love it.
Well, it only started because obviously the company is an extension of who I am as an individual. And as you know, I'm sort of a mixed race. My mother was white, and my father was black, and the Cuban race is made by Chinese and French and British and everyone. So it's a melting pot. But also in terms of dance, my very first step towards the dance was break dancing, and it was salsa, and then ballet. And so in me has all this information and this kind of multiculturalism aspect of who I am. And so that's what I'm trying to transmit when I created, the company, is in terms of dance, to embrace it all. And move towards the contemporary, but also from the sense that only what's authentic and what is original is what actually has a place that is completely different than every other, spaces or all the companies that they offer. And so the Cuban folk and the Cuban heritage is the one that it will make us different than everybody else out there. So whatever we do, it always goes from the perspective of this is a Cuban company, and Cuba as a nation and as a race has something to say that is completely different than any other. So I think it is an extension, I think, in a way of who I am, I think, as a Russian and as Cuban. So
there's something that, you know, I'm not being disrespectful to other dance companies, but every time I'm around your company and just sitting in rehearsals today, there just seems to be such kind of joy and happiness, and you know, there's a camaraderie amongst those 9 dancers on stage. And when I came to see some rehearsals with you a few weeks ago, it feels like, you know, that there's a real love for what they're doing. There's a real passion, you know, and that must drive you as well to see that kind of energy.
Yeah, and it's like a family, and you know, I think there is a sense of we're building it together.
Yeah.
And you know, Cuba, the Caribbean, you know, because we have this constant dialogue with the sun. We're happy people, you know, and so that it's you know, what it comes across. But they work so hard. They're so professional, and they love to share, you know. Their dancing, and so every time they are abroad, it's just I had the feeling that what they're saying is this is an occasion for celebration. And I think, you know, it's like when you witness them rehearsal and all of that, you know, that's what it comes across. So it's just great.
It must help you thrive as well, because I've been amazed, you know, you brought back on before during COVID. We kind of talked about that, and that's something you wanted to do at the end of COVID. And of course, you're planning to dance again later this year. Is it? Are they kind of, you know, keeping you on your game now?
Yeah, it's very inspiring, you know, to see them. And obviously, they drive you. You know, whenever I am in a program with them, which it was regularly when we first, you know, launched the company in 2015. I was always performing with them, and that was just you know, contagious to see the energy and this rush of youth, and you know, it's always great. You need that around you. But you know, for me, you know, obviously, as you know, I retired from the classical repertory, but I thought, well, it's gonna be my 50th, you know, so I would like to maybe one more time to put the tights on and go back to, after I vowed that I would never wear tights again. But again, it's not a comeback, it's just a way of sharing, and especially with my twin girls that are 6 years old, that they never seen daddy perform. And so I said, well, you know, I'm gonna show you what daddy used to do, you know. And so I thought that we were gonna do, I was gonna prepare myself and endure it, you know, once again to do Apollo and all those pieces that I love, and also a reunion with Marinela Núñez.
Oh, amazing!
Which was my old partner, and in the Royal Opera House, which has been the place that I worked for 17 years.
So, for those who might not know, Carlos turns 50 this year. You wouldn't believe it, and it's a week of performances, isn't it? Back at the Royal Opera House, Carlos at 50. Some people would choose to take a long vacation or maybe buy a caravan, but no, Carlos is returning to classical ballet. And do you think it's not, you say it's not a revival, it's not coming out of retirement, but how you think about that? Because you're approaching repertoire that you did at a period of time in your life, before you'd had all this life experience of founding your own company. You're going to be bringing something new to that, as well as, you know, the technique. There's a whole load of stuff you've been through since, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I just this week started to rehearse the repertoire, especially Apollo with Pat Neary, which at the time, at this time, is in Birmingham. So Birmingham is also doing the week of the 5th of June, a triple bill, which again, for those who, you know, you haven't seen it, you know, I invite you to come and see it. So Apollo starts the bill, and then we have interlinked a really lovely piece by Brazilian choreographer Juliano Nunes, and then you know, finish the bill with Still Life of Penguin Cafe, which is a crowd pleaser by David Bintley. And so Pat Neary started to rehearse Apollo this week, and I was as well there in the rehearsal. And so it gave me a chance now to revisit it, you know, from the perspective of a 50-year-old, this classic that it was one of my favorite roles. And you know, obviously the physicality is never going to be the same, but I think hopefully, you know, I could bring the knowledge that I acquire after performing this role many times. And in terms of musicality, I mean, I know this role inside out, so it's just a case of getting the condition back to a level that I can run it, and I can sustain that run back to back for 5 shows, which is no any easy task. But in terms of the choreography and the music, it's all there. I remember everything. Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting.
It's gonna be a really special thing. See, I can't wait. But all the time I've known you, you've always got something that it drives you, doesn't it, to work towards something, as well as being amazing at what you're doing right now. The drive to do the next and the 50th and you know, the amazing things you're doing at BRB, a Black Sabbath ballet. Who would have thought? You know, that's what keeps you kind of going and motivated? Yeah.
I want to bring something to the table, you know, in terms of either captivate the audience imagination or something that it requires a new way to see things, or a new repertory, or a new idea that you know, somebody haven't thought before, or something. But you know, I one thing is clear. I want to bring something to the table. I don't want to repeat myself, and I want to keep inventing and find the ways that keep evolving or keep connecting the audience in different places, keep gaining momentum. So the audience that normally don't consume ballet can come in. And then just to tell them, look, this is also ballet. It's not what you think it is. And so that's where I come from. I try not to repeat myself, or I try to go and be bold, and they go through a pathway that perhaps somebody haven't walked through before, and that keep me as an incentive. That is what keep me you know, in the morning motivated and make me get up and go. And this is again the same idea of returning to the stage at 50. It's a big challenge, but it's a challenge that I need as well. It's good for me physicality, and also, you know, it's always, the dance is always, there is a battle between mind and body. It's always this kind of battle, but you know, hopefully the mind is stronger. Even if you know, the body sometimes don't follow, but at least, you know, I'm gonna try to this is how I always live my life, and so I try to live that way as long as I can.
Absolutely. And you know, we can't say much about it now, but I can assure you, talking about these kind of projects with Carlos is just infectious, and watch this space on that. I wanted to touch on that briefly before we finish, because it is Mental Health Awareness Week this week, and you know, I think often you would think for sports people, and I think for dancers as well, there is so much focus on the physical health, about looking after the body, but that challenge, that having to stay at the top of your game, that kind of sense of that it's quite precariousness, you know, you're reliant on your body, that needs to be given that focus as well, doesn't it? And particularly for a company like Acosta Danza, who, you know, you've got an amazing group of young people there finding their way in the world. That's really special for them, that you can give them that kind of discipline as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also it's a responsibility that you had to them. You know, I've been very lucky that I perform everywhere in the world, but now that I'm directing, I also had to give the possibility of the dancers to at least have the best career they could possibly can. And so that's why I'm very eager trying to book the company so that they dance in anywhere in the world where I've been lucky, you know, to perform before. And so far so good. You know, we have performed in Norway and in Greece in this lovely theater, you know, by the Acropolis. You know, and it's for a contemporary dance company, which normally they don't make it there, you know. And the Royal Albert Hall, when we went to do you know, that celebration that we did, where I did my own Carmen and so on. And so it's a responsibility to just give them the best chances they got to get you know, a great career. So I think that's important. In terms of health, is it is very important to be healthy, for be a dancer to be healthy, but all starts about, you need to be able to, how do you balance out your scheduling and how do you live your life? And for me, I think diet is very important, and resting is very important. Have a sense of purpose, keep you sane in your mind, and then just have this kind of balance, obviously, as well, where you could, share with your people that you love, the more that you can. That also, it plays a very important role into whatever purpose as a dancer you're going to have. So I think it's just that balance.
Yeah, and what you put out there, you get back. If you give off positivity, then you don't know, that's always helping the people around you who might be struggling. And it's just a wonderful kind of sense you've created of that within the company. And it's wonderful to have them back with us. We're really excited about the show tonight. And thank you so much for chatting with us, Carlos.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
So on each episode of Norwich Theatre Talks, I really enjoy introducing you to different members of the many teams that make up Norwich Theatre. And over the past few episodes, we've had some really amazing feedback from those who listen and watch about how interesting it is to understand the work of our technical team, often who aren't seen on the stage, or if they do appear on the stage, it usually means something isn't going quite right. So today, I'm really pleased to introduce Emma Maxwell. Emma is one of our senior technicians, and you are senior technician, open brackets, stage.
And facilities,
I believe.
Yes.
I suppose that's one of the first things to say, is that the technical team is a big team, lots of different people, but actually you sort of cluster together in different skill sets, don't you? Tell us a bit about how that works.
So we have sort of, within the technical department, we've got the stage department, the LX, lights, sound, and then AV as well. And we all sort of branch off into our own individual areas so we can assist visiting companies in the best way with our skill set and what they need.
Yeah, and you are in the stage team,
Yes.
and how did that come to be? Tell us
Well,
a
it
bit
all
about
started here at the Playhouse, actually. So I finished uni and basically was working in a pub in Sheringham, and then ended up volunteering here on a production of Miss Saigon.
Right.
And got to know Tristan, the then technical manager, and Pete, who's now technical manager, and they offered me a job as a casual. And then a year later, I moved up to the Royal to help Will with, I think it was Northern Ballet.
Yep.
And then, as they say, the
rest is history.
Yes. 10 years later, I'm still here. And now I'm a resident. So,
Absolutely. And as well as supporting the presented programme like Northern Ballet or shows that kind of come and go, you also play a particularly integral role, don't you, in the work that we produce. And I think a lot of people listening might think that Richard Gauntlet or Joe Tracini are the people that hold pantomime together. I tell you that is not true. It is this lady here. Tell us about your role on pantomime and DSMing.
So on pantomime, I am DSM, Deputy Stage Manager, which basically means that I call the show and oversee all the rehearsal process with a team of stage management as well. But my job in particular, I sit in the rehearsal room and I write down every bit of movement of everything and person, and then I distribute that to every department within the production as well, so they all know what is happening when and why, and any changes that need to happen. And then in the tech rehearsal, which is the longest week anyone has ever lived, I help run that, and that's when the rest of the technical team come into finding out what the show is, because obviously the actors have rehearsed it for 2 weeks. The technical team haven't really seen it, so that's their time, and I liaise all that and tell them when they need to do things. So part of that is cueing everything. So every lighting change, every sound effect, everything that moves that is not an actor on stage will be cued by me saying go.
Yes.
Basically a sort of the musical director of the show, but not the music.
It's wonderful if you stand side stage while a show is going on. You can have all sorts of things going on the stage. You can have scenery coming and going, you know, an orchestra in the pit going crazy, and then there's one person sat in the corner who has to remain calm
Yes.
and controlled and follow all of that.
Yes. You've got all your different monitors and so screens. You've got your colour screen, you've got an infrared so you can see in blackouts, so no one can hide. And you've got various different what we call cue lights. So you give a red for your standby and then a green for the go, but you're also giving a verbal. You've got everyone else talking as well. And you've got to remain the voice of reason and the voice of calm and make sure it all goes swimmingly. And then if anything does go wrong, you have to be the one to say what we're going to do, where we're going to pick up from if we've had to stop, X, Y, Z. So it's a high pressure situation.
And that's an amazing skill, isn't it? Is this something that you studied, or is it something that you've learnt as you've gone along?
I haven't had any actual training in stage management. I went to uni and did drama and theatre and just did lots of shows while I was there as DSM and just really loved it and sort of self-taught and through experience and being given the opportunities to do productions like the one we're doing now.
Well, the process of calling a show, I guess most people can kind of get it, and the script is there and you follow it, and lines might get missed and cues might get missed, and you go along. But you know, we're sitting here today and we've borrowed you on a tea break from quite a different show that you're having to call. Well, there are no words.
No words.
How on earth do you do that?
So it's all a mixture with this sort of dance. Everything is done to track, so it's always the same time. So you can make note of different times you need to be on in the music. If you have a stopwatch, you can do that. You also do it visually. I do quite a lot of it through feeling it, which is the only way I can really describe certain things to people. You just gotta feel it, and that's all I can say on that really. But it's a mixture of watching what the performers are doing, like certain dance moves, or just certain little tweaks of their body they might do. You go, okay, I know they're about to go into this bit, so it's got to change now. And certain things with the stopwatch, literally going, okay, it's this time. Yeah.
And I've seen it. I mean, we worked together, didn't we, on Before, which was Carlos's solo show. And you know, all the dancers on the stage have to rehearse, but you have to rehearse it, don't you? There is a whole discipline of preparation that goes on for you.
So I spend a lot of time listening, because I can't read music, whereas a lot of DSMs would be able to read music. I can't. And I've sort of found I don't really need to, because if you can find the count in that music and listen to it. So I spend a lot of time watching videos of the dances, listening to the music, so I can familiarise myself, my sort of core, as it were, with that piece of music, so I know and can feel where it's going. So that's how I do it. But I know some people would have the sheet music there and they just go off that. Whereas I find the count and can do it that way.
So the next time you see a piece of dance or any piece of theatre, just think about the person that's holding all of that together. Now, over the past few years, as we've expanded and developed our programme, we've been making more shows ourselves, co-producing a lot more. You've been right at the centre of that, haven't you? And we were both there together on our first international tour to Spain.
That was boiling, but lovely.
It was hot. Anybody you ask about that, you ask about 34-degree heat and
was
working
amazing,
till 2 in the morning.
And stalks, lots of stalks.
Lots of stalks. But that's how's that been? Because that's been so new, hasn't it, for the whole team to be going off and touring and having that ownership of shows?
It has been daunting, but also incredibly fun, and I'm very proud, actually, that we've been able to do it, and not just be here in Little Norwich doing this thing here, but like taking it out to other theatres, not just in the UK, but like you say, abroad. And it has been a tremendous experience, and I hope we can carry on doing it.
There's no stopping us now.
No.
And this episode's being recorded during Mental Health Awareness Week, and you know, I'm always really conscious of the pressure that certain roles across the whole organisation have on them, and yours is one in particular, isn't it? In a show period where it can be quite intense, the days are quite long, and then you go into the show and it's on you. And how do you find time to, how do you tune out from that and release that?
Ooh. Well, this week we'll be going for a drink after the show tonight.
Yeah.
And we're not actually starting until quite late tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I find that after a very long day, and also when you're inside all day, it's nice to get out and just be outside, even if it isn't daylight, and just relax and not have any noise. I like to have quiet and not have anyone asking me questions. That's the key. Being left alone.
That's often it, isn't it? In your role, you're somebody tapping you on the shoulder, or somebody, sometimes me with a god mic, Emma,
and I'm like, yes, it's this bit. Yeah, but it is nice being the sort of font of all knowledge, I must admit. It's quite nice being like, I know.
Absolutely. So the final thing I want to say is actually, as well as doing this work for us, through our partnerships, you've actually become a firm favourite of Mr. Acosta and Acosta Danza, haven't you?
Yes.
You've been touring with them as we've kind of lent you out.
Yes, thank you.
How's that been? Are you looking forward to doing more of that?
Hopefully get to go with them again next year. We've not long finished our European tour, which was amazing. Got to go to Rotterdam, which is another place I've never been, bought some tulips. Got to go to Spain again. We were meant to go to Istanbul, but sadly that had to be cancelled. And last year we went out and did Paris for 2 weeks.
Wow.
At the Chaillot Theatre, which was huge. But it's a pleasure going out with them. They are all so lovely and such wonderful dancers, which is why I'm really enjoying today working with them again. And I hope I get to go with them again, because it's just a wonderful experience and opportunity to work with a brilliant company. That's and grow as well.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons I enjoy working with Carlos in this company is there's a lot of joy there, isn't it?
That is the word for it.
And being able to immerse yourself in that, even if your role within it can be quite pressurised, helps alleviate that pressure.
Absolutely,
do you feel that?
Because I'm sort of there as like a liaison stage management, because they bring their own team with them. So I'm there to support them more than anything, and it is nice to be a part of that, because like you say, they are just full of joy and they want to do it in such a beautiful way, and I'm really, thank you for letting me go out with them.
Well, it's a love in here at Norwich Playhouse this afternoon, and Emma, it's been amazing talking about your story. That's quite the way from the pub in Sheringham, and I'm very pleased you're with us. Thank you for joining us, Emma.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us, and a huge thank you to my two fantastic guests, Carlos Acosta, and from our own technical team, Emma Maxwell. Please do keep telling us your thoughts on these podcast episodes or ideas about things we could include in future episodes. It's great to have you with us, and do keep listening to the back catalogue as well. We'll see you again in a month's time.